that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to not the Expanded Universe. A what-if tale, if you will, alternate timeline separate from Disney, or separate from the EU canon, or separate from the possible what-if stories they're doing with Disney canon, or the Star Wars visions, the fan fiction universe, you know, if you will. The how things possibly could have gone or whatnot, or basically this isn't canon, but I'm reading it anyway because, as I've said the last couple times I reviewed Head of Thrawn 45 story, that he is well received amongst many people. So I thought, if enough people consider Head of Thrawn's work canon, I might as well take it upon myself to read and review everything for your viewing pleasure. Will I like everything? I don't know. I've heard mixed things about a lot of his work. So far I've read, and I'll need to reread for a review for you guys, but on my own time I read the finale to Coruscant Nights and Republic Commando that Hand of Thrawn 45 wrote, and I really enjoyed those. I read a story called Shadowed Peace or Shadowed War, which takes place before New Jedi Order. That was pretty good too. And I read a little short story that took place during New Jedi Order, which was also fairly decent. Today we have Hand of Thrawn 45's Attrition fanfiction, which he, of course, wrote. It was his second fanfiction that he ever wrote. Now, this story would take place after Dark Nest. But the story is split in half. We have the main story, which takes place after Dark Nest, and then we have the flashback sections, which take place right after Endor, and then 2 sections of it take place 12 ABY, and the last one takes place 13 ABY in terms of flashbacks. But the main story, the now story, is after Dark Nest. So there's this uneasy peace, right? Because the Vong have been defeated, the Dark Nest crisis has been resolved. The Alliance, you know, there's no new Republic anymore, but those people in the Galactic Alliance, the ones who used to be New Republic, yes, the Empire helped with stopping the Vong, but there's still all the animosity from times past. Before, there was just this truce that they weren't going to attack each other anymore. They were just neutral. But now they're supposed to be allies. You got Alliance people that don't like that, and you got a lot of old, resentful Imperial people that don't agree with that. And there's this mysterious shipyard, not really mysterious, but kind of unknown quantity of this shipyard that no one really knew about, and Imperial people die. Innocent civilians. Is this the New Republic side of the Alliance going against the Coalition of Peace? Is it Imperial renegades that want revenge and don't want peace? What's the answer? What's going on? Or is it some other threat entirely, trying to stir trouble amongst these two factions that have now become unified in this galactic alliance? You have to read the fanfiction to find out. But there's quite a bit of standouts in the story. The big main thing here is you get a lot of Pelion, who's pushing 90 now. Which, yes, we have the actual canon stories of Legacy of the Force and what happens with Pelion in that series. But this is a story that's set before that. Again, just proving to me the potential for stories set after New Jedi Order, like before Dark Nest and after Dark Nest. There's so much stuff before the actual main big complaint that people have with the series happens, and that's right here in this time frame that they have to make stories. And I'll say this: Hand of Thrawn 45, just like EU authors that actually wrote for the Expanded Universe, just gets Pelion. He understands Pelion to a T. Pelion is written so beautifully here, and he really is a shining example and the main reason you come to read this story. And other than that, I'll say, getting to see Endor from like a more Imperial perspective was quite fascinating. We got nice little cameos in there. I'll mention that we get to see Jarek for a second. That's pretty cool. We also get Nathael, the Mon Calamari, who would be a big important character in Legacy of the Force. Along with Thraken makes an appearance here. He's causing trouble. Of course he is. Tycho, Wedge, Pelion, Fanir, Flennick. There's so many good parts moving here. But it's a rather small-scale story. I mean, like, yeah, if the Alliance breaks up, then that's kind of like a big loss. But, again, it's not a world-ending threat. This is just would ruin all the growth that we've had over the years. This would ruin everything that's been built toward if this happened. So, there's that. And then, we get to see, like, before Admar and stuff like that. And shortly after the Reborn Emperor and stuff. So there's a lot of cool stuff there. And it's a decent little story that, while maybe not official, could be something that sates you, something that you could enjoy before reading the actual series of Legacy of the Force. Something to read in between that time. But overall, I thought it was pretty decent. I have some spoilers to talk about. If you don't want to hear about that, you want to read that for yourself, you can, of course, go on fanfiction.net, and you can read all these stories there. It's pretty decent. Like I said, it's not official or anything, but, if you want more EU stories or possible what-if EU stories, and, you're waiting for Lucasfilm to finally possibly give us more, as we have marked our 10-year anniversary of no EU. So, but I'll say, if you're ever worried about that Silent Hill has gone 10 years without new stories. Now we're getting a remake of 2 and 2 different video games that are going to be continuing the story. Maybe not necessarily continuing the plot, because every plot's kind of different, but continuing the franchise. So I will continue to hold out hope for the expanded universe. But until that time, maybe we can enjoy some fan fiction, to kind of tide us over. But that's it for my non-spoiler review. If you don't want spoilers, get out of here. It starts with, we get to see Nathael, as I mentioned, and Nick Boltway, who are both going to be in the next series. Gilad Pelion in the head of the Alliance Navy, which is great. We're at Garmbel Ilbis's funeral, which, I don't think it's ever stated in Legacy of the Force or Fate of the Jedi, or really anywhere, what happens with Garmbel Ilbis, who's been a pretty big character for all of, the OT era. And so, it kind of makes sense. He gets a peaceful end here. He dies of old age. And, that's not really what the Imperials tend to get, is it? They mention that in the book, or in the story. That the Imperials, the rebels are the ones that get the happy ending, but not for most Imperials. But, we also have Thraken sowing his seeds of stuff he wants to do by making a big scene at Garmbel Ilbis's funeral, making a big speech. Again, it'll be important for the next series, so it's cool that it's built up here. Then we get to the flashback era, where we get to right at the Battle of Endor. And we see the bliss for our heroes in the movies, and the utter horror and destruction from the Imperial point of view. It also brings some significant insight into Pelion, someone that's worked both during the prequels to now. He fought for the Old Republic. He fought for the Empire. But it was never really for any government. It was for the promise of peace and security, which he felt by the end of the Clone Wars the Old Republic was lacking. That is then what Palpatine promised, but he didn't really keep that promise either. He had a very cruel empire, a very bigoted empire, which is not necessarily what Pelion wanted. So, his ideals have always been peace and security. And one thing that's constantly mentioned throughout the story is that Pelion is adaptable, as compared to most of the Imperials, which makes them different instead of apart. And I like that. We also get a little, as I said in the non-spoiler, we get a little cameo of Jarek, which is very cool to see. He basically tries to take control of what's left of the Empire, but the Moths aren't having it. They won't have it that way. So Jarek leaves angrily so, as one of the Moths so accurately calls him, "You're just a second-rate Darth Vader," which really doesn't make Jarek happy. But then we know what happens to Jarek moving forward. He'll be defeated by Kyle Katarn in the Dark Forces video game. I also just wanted to mention, because they have a Myri or Myrol and Sayol, Wedge's children. And Myri is 19 at this point, and Sayol is 21, which is just crazy to think about. Veneer has a lot of regret, about what the Empire's become as what it once was. But there comes a time when you just have to realize there's no changing it. But he'd rather be isolationist or completely annihilated than keep being the losers that they are. We also have a lot of references to, not necessarily No Prisoners, but, to those stories, because Pauline talks about his lost love, or his old fling. We already lost a child during the Vong War, and how he suspects that this new character named Victor is also his child. He doesn't want to know the truth, though, regardless. He knows he cares about him, but he doesn't want to risk another heartbreak like that. We also get an aftermath of the Dark Empire, as I said. We can see Pelion use World Devastators after the events of the Dark Empire, which I thought was pretty cool. But anyway, it all culminates in truth, which is that Raish, who is Victor's mother and Pelion's former lover, has betrayed him, gone against him. So it was an Imperial side that was trying to cause conflict. But they fix it, they make amends. Everything's good for the events of Legacy of the Force for them to all be on the same page and fine. But emotionally, personally, for Pelion, it's had to hit so hard. Someone he trusted implicitly to let them down. As I said, this is a perfect exploration mainly of Pelion's character and who he is at this point and the long life that he's lived, hitting 90. And this only further proves to me, though, that, he has a lot of regret. And I think a lot more sadness about the fact that he's lived while others he's loved or cared about has died. But this reaffirms me that he's not a man that would want to go down just lying down. He may say that sometimes, but in the end, he'd rather be standing up as the officer that he is. So I think this is a phenomenal little short story. It's not canon, but it's something. And if it hits emotionally, then it hits emotionally. I don't necessarily accept it into my EU canon. I can't, because it's not a part of the EU canon. But I did enjoy it. And, I already enjoyed Pelion, and it doesn't really contradict Pelion. It just makes me love Pelion more. So, I do recommend it. And it is based off of a short story. It was in A Guide to Warfare, where they talk about specific engagements that went on. And it didn't get a lot of detail, it was just vaguely mentioned. So, this kind of fleshes that out. So, overall, I do recommend this fanfic to you guys. Up next will be Star Wars Destinies by HOT45. And then we'll move on back to the official expanded universe with Legacy of the Force, my second favorite series next to New Jedi Order. So until then, guys, may the Force be with you.